I believe we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Indie Feature Friday. My name is Desmond Cole, and I am the best-selling author of the book, The Skin We're In, A Year of Black Resistance and Power. Thank you very much for joining us for Indie Feature Friday. I'm delighted that we will be speaking with Paul MacKay of the King's Co-op Bookstore in Halifax as part of this ongoing series. This is, of course, an ongoing Penguin Random House series in order to support Canada's indie booksellers. And please mark on your calendars that August 29th is Canadian Independent Booksellers Day. And if you can, we would really like you to buy a book from your local independent bookstore on August 29th. We want you to do it every day, of course, but that would be a great day to support independent booksellers across Canada. Today, we are shining a light on King's Co-op Bookstore, as I mentioned, an independent bookstore operating out of King's College in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And before I get to my conversation with Paul, just a couple of quick Zoom reminders for everybody. The chat can be activated at the bottom of your screen, and if you want to comment along or add reactions while we have the conversation, then feel free to do that. Also, if you want to submit a question for us, you can submit that through the Q&A button that you can activate at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to a few of those as time allows us today during our chat. With that, I will ask our special guest, Paul MacKay, to please join us in the conversation.
Hey, Desmond.
There he is. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. How are you doing? It's good to see you.
It's really good to see you too. It's been several months since the last time I actually saw you, and I'm doing well. I hope you are too.
I'm doing pretty well.
Let me ask you just personally how things have been for you. I saw you in February as I was beginning my book tour, and we had no idea what was coming for us at that time with coronavirus and all the changes that have happened. How have things been since that time for you?
They've been ups and downs, like everybody. Like you said, we had no idea what was coming, and I left that event that you did here on such a high. I was so happy to be able to do that with you, and I was just looking forward to kind of the school year winding down, get into kind of a little relaxing sort of summer. That's obviously not what happened, but it's been difficult but kind of fun. Like I don't shy away from a challenge, so trying to sort of adapt like my own personal life and then the bookstore into this kind of new reality it's been interesting.
Part of that new reality, I mean, so for example, how are you connecting with people now that you would have normally been connecting through because they would walk into your bookstore on campus?
We're doing a lot more things just on social media. Usually Twitter's a great thing for us. I decided to kind of be a little bit more personal on Twitter as things were kind of going. It felt a little disingenuous as, the world is kind of falling apart and everything's so difficult to just be on there and be like, hi, would you like to buy a book? I was more open about kind of, this is kind of terrible. I hope everyone's doing okay. Glad everyone's quarantining, and like, we'll do this for you. We'll get you books if you need anything delivered to your door, all that kind of thing. So it's been a lot of social media stuff, lots of just emails back and forth. Even though we have a good website that people can go on and kind of search through things, I get a lot of people who just email me directly, just saying, hey, can you get me this? And I'll just talk to them, kind of offer individual book recommendations through emails. So my email habit has gone like 1,000 times more intense than it used to be.
Do you make deliveries yourself?
I do, yeah. So I started doing deliveries was something I thought of doing before that I just kind of never got around to doing, but people will support local businesses if it's a couple extra dollars more, for instance. But when you start putting shipping charges on it, then it can be asking a bit much. So I decided this is a perfect opportunity to try this out. And so I'll come into the store and get orders together. If it's local to Halifax, I'll get on my bike with a backpack on and just go paperboy style, do that. We do a lot of stuff through UPS if we have to, like out of the province. And if it's in kind of further reaches, I'll either borrow a car or like friends of mine who live kind of outside the city, they'll take stuff for me. So it's kind of a nice group effort.
Now, I know you as kind of being the face of the bookstore, but who else is working that we might not see all the time behind the scenes to make everything happen every day?
Yeah, mostly it's me, and a lot of the students that were working here are either home or they're doing other things right now. So it's mostly me and the bookstore board that are kind of making the decisions and kind of making things happen. So we're a cooperative, so we have a board of 8 different people who kind of officially own the store. 4 of who are always University of King's students, and then 4 are just members of the community. So I'm in sort of constant contact with them behind the scenes, kind of getting their opinions on things, kind of what they'd like to see, what I can do, and kind of work together like that.
You know, when I was there visiting you, I noticed that you seem to go out of your way to really cultivate relationships with students. We did an event together where you had a small group of students. Kings helped to organize the big book event that I was there for, but then we also met with a smaller group of students, um, just who wanted to share some of their own experiences and have a more intimate conversation. I wonder, can you talk a little more about how you try to go about building relationships through your work with students?
Yeah, I'm in a really unique position being on campus. Like, I'm not a professor. No, none of the students owe me anything. They don't have to talk to me in any certain way, or they don't have to worry about anything like that. So I'm in a great position that I can just talk to people kind of like one on one as sort of equals. I'll try to support the campus businesses other than mine as well. There's a cafe called the Galley. There's the campus bar, things like that. So I'll be in those spaces. I'll try to have conversations with people. I'll, ask them how they're doing and just kind of try to be as friendly as possible, and obviously not one of them, but like someone that people can talk to if they want to. And through the bookstore, I'm always looking for things that I can do to help sort of support them in the things that they're doing. So, for instance, the Racialized Students Collective doing things, we kind of I'll offer them books at a discount for their kind of lending library and things like that. Like, I just try to put the bookstore in a spot that I'll go out of my way to find things that we can do to kind of help them out in different ways. And a lot of students really appreciate that. It's something I always look forward to doing. Like, we're a small outfit and we're not a nonprofit, but profit's not our end goal. So it's nice to kind of use money that we've got from sales to kind of devote it to things like that.
Uh, Now, when I was first starting out my undergrad in university, I thought of the campus bookstore primarily as the place to get the textbooks that I was required to get
Hmm.
for all my classes. Um, and I think a lot of people conceive of a campus bookstore in that way. But like, do students really make time to just read for pleasure? And can you talk a little bit maybe about that and about, like, not just being the person that hawks the textbook, but that is actually trying to encourage a broader culture of just reading and loving the written word?
Yeah, like when I did my undergrad too, the bookstore was a place you'd go once, ideally, because it's usually packed in September. So you'd go, you'd do that, and you don't even think about it again. So we try to make sure that everything for that is kind of taken care of, but it's almost like an afterthought to the day-to-day sort of stuff. A lot of the courses are just in the same building upstairs, so people will come down in between classes, just kind of look at what's around. A lot of them do have to read kind of too much for class, like they're always reading something. um, but they'll come down after kind of like maybe doing a test that they really nailed, and they'll come look at the books and they'll buy that one book that, like, I've been looking at this for weeks and I want to read this. And they'll ask me or some of the other people here, what should I be reading? Like, what can I get as like an aspirational thing on the shelf for later on? One of the things we do too is we offer a kind of a credit system where 5% of what you buy gets put into an account, kind of like a rewards program. But instead of where most places will get you $5 back, you'll get $25 back here. So, like, when you buy all your course books, that can add up really quickly since some of them can be expensive. So you buy all that stuff from us, you get your sweater, your course books, and then you've got this kind of like free money to go buy the stuff you actually might want to read kind of on your own individual time. So we do that, and again, like with your event, for instance, like we always try to get out in the public as much as we can. host book events. Again, use any money that we might have to kind of put towards things like that. Like if Penguin wasn't gracious enough to send you our way, like I started looking at, can I afford to maybe do that on the bookstore's dime, and like maybe make less money on book sales, but put money towards that. But you are right in that most people think of us as just, well, I'm not a student and I'm not a King student in particular, so I don't belong. Why would I go check that place out? So that's something we always kind of struggle with, to try to get more out there in the public. That no, anyone can come here. We can order anything you'd like. We're just as much of a bookstore as anybody else.
How do the public events help out with that? Is that a way for people to kind of know more where you are, know that they can come in and visit? Do public events kind of help draw people in who might not feel like comfortable walking into a campus and reading a bookstore?
They do, yeah, because a lot of people, like we've been here, it's about 13 years, I think now, but there are still a lot of people in town who haven't heard of us. So we'll go do those events and we'll bring kind of bookmarks or stickers or things like that, you know, and they'll say, oh, where are you? You know, I've been here for so long, I never heard of you. So it's just like a constant thing like that of, no, here we are, this is what we do. Like we've got a podcast, for instance, other things like that, trying to just get out in the public more. And some of the events, like the ones that you've done as well, we record them and put them up either as podcast episodes or just share them with people that try to just take those kind of one-off events that maybe everyone can't get to, but kind of share that, like you said, the kind of love of literature and reading and learning.
Can you tell us about your podcast?
Yeah, so there's a journalism school here at King's that's just fantastic, and they have a professional recording booth in there, so it's just around the corner. So what it is we'll bring in an author who's got a new book coming out, or just someone, like could be someone who teaches a class at Dalhousie or King's that are really knowledgeable about a certain thing. So they average from about a half hour to an hour long, and it's me just kind of sitting and interviewing somebody, like close to like a less stressful sort of, you know, CBC kind of interview or something like that. Just very relaxed sort of thing. We've got about 25 to 30 episodes up now, and it's called Bookings, which was a portmanteau of book and Kings. So kind of cheesy, but it works. So like for your events, we just hosted those audio files as just like live editions of the podcast, basically.
So how did you find yourself in this role, really kind of running a lot of these operations out of the bookstore? Is this something that you saw yourself doing?
Not really. Like my background, I went to school for music. My goal was to be a jazz guitarist, you know, where all the money is. And I ended up injuring my arm, and I couldn't do it to the level that I wanted to do it anymore. So I ended up moving back home when I was done, and I got a job at a Chapters, actually, like shelving books with one hand while I kind of nursed my arm together. And I worked there for a while, got into books and, you know, the publishing industry and stuff like that. And then I moved to Halifax, and this store opened up a while back, but they were looking for a new manager. So I jumped over here. It's been a great switch for me. And then, like I said, the biggest problem has always been just kind of outreach in the community and kind of getting us out there. So I've always just been looking for different things I can do to kind of do that. I've got a couple things in the fire right now too. Like I've asked some local people if they would be comfortable kind of recommending a book to me, and then we can have a different page on our website that's just people in Halifax, sort of like a Halifax Reads sort of thing, but maybe with a better name, where it'll be the picture of the person, who they are, what they do, and a link to the book and their kind of description. So taking that sort of like hand selling book business, you know, more into the community a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. I see we're getting some questions in the Q&A section. Please remember that you can submit questions in the Q&A if you would like to for our guest, Paul MacKay. I see one from Evan, one from Tara, one from Emily. Going to get to these in a second. But first, Paul, let me ask you, what do you think an independent bookstore can really offer? I mean, we're always hearing how important it is to support that local shop. What is it that you do, you think, that is kind of special to your craft in this industry?
Yeah, like an independent bookstore is just such a great spot in the community, because it's people who live in the community, work there, obviously. but everyone brings their own sort of unique take and perspective on what books should be and what this bookstore should be. If you work at sort of a chain bookstore, like when I worked at one, you don't do any of the purchasing there. You don't decide what you should have, what this bookstore should be and should represent. So like someone in Toronto would do that, and it would just get shipped over. We'd shelve it, and like if someone came in, here it is. But being able to kind of curate the selection of stuff that you think is important and that you think the community should be aware of is hugely important. To be able to make those sorts of decisions, like when everything was going on with George Floyd, and there was a huge push on books like yours. I was in the position that I could say, you know what, I'm going to discount all these books half price. I'll deliver them to your house. You have no excuse not to read these books, for instance. Working at a chain store, like that just wouldn't happen. Like that would never happen. And it's just a great opportunity to kind of, like I said, kind of put yourself in the community in a way to kind of help other people, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get to a couple of these questions. So Emily Voss wants to say, hi, Paul. Do you want to talk about the new merch that came out of this time? And are you getting recognized on your bike when you bike around town doing deliveries?
Yeah, so that was a fun thing. Like when COVID happened, I just decided, let's just go with this. Let's have fun with it as much as we can. I had a friend of mine, Paul Hammond, design a logo for the store just for, Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. But everybody really liked it. So he drew this of me on my bike, which I just loved. So I made some stickers of that for people. I've got a tote bag in the back here that people are buying, and that's Paul's book. He wrote Gary the Seagull, or he illustrated it with B.A. Johnston. So I'd like to say that looks a lot like me. So yeah, people.
It's a very, very spitting image, I would say.
Yeah. So people do recognize me on my bike or when I'm walking around. I get a couple of those sort of like just people trying to figure out how they might know me and stuff like that. So it was a good thing. Like even people that wanted to support the bookstore, they'd buy books, but sometimes they just wanted to just support in other ways. They just wanted to buy a sticker for $1, just say, here's something, buy the tote bag. So it's been interesting making sales like, oh, would you like a tote bag with my face on it, with your books? So it's been a little awkward to get used to, but I'm having fun with it.
You have to. It's amazing. Sorry if I pronounce anyone's names wrong. Tara Brum, I believe it is saying, hi, Paul. Did the closure of bookstores like Indigo during the pandemic inspire more people from the general public to buy books from you? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it kind of did. And Halifax is an interesting spot as well, because for people who are familiar with Halifax, the peninsula is the busiest spot, and the chapters, there's one in Dartmouth and kind of outside that. So a lot of people that are on the peninsula will look to local stuff a lot of the time. And when they were closed, people who were just more used to doing that just out of habit were getting in touch with me, placing orders through me. Kind of, again, didn't realize we were here, that this was an option, that people could order books, they could pre-order books, they could do everything they wanted to do in those kind of places, but like at a little local spot and have this, skinny guy show up on a bike and, hand it over. So I'm not happy that they had to close too, because I know a lot of great people that work at those, but it did benefit us in a way, in that being as small as we are and as nimble as we are, we could adapt and adjust to all the new things that were happening like really quickly and easily, which was great. You get a store like that, something that big with so many people and so many variables and bureaucracy behind it and everything else, it's really difficult to kind of steer one of those quickly.
Most definitely. Evan Monday. Hello, Evan. Evan says, thanks, Paul. And given in-person events aren't happening, many people aren't visiting stores. How are you hearing that your readers are discovering books that they want to order outside of your own social media efforts? That's a great question. So yeah, how do people know what to shop for when they can't walk in and touch and pick up and look with their own eyes and hands?
A lot of it has been coming from like social media stuff outside of our own as well, or there's so many great movie and TV adaptations of books right now that are out there, that people are watching one of those and go, okay, I need this book. So that's a huge one. Almost everything on HBO right now is like based on a book, And then there's the old school, like, friend of yours read a book and they just took a picture of it and showed it to you, or like just really rant about how good this book is. And there's a great, culture of sharing between book people all the time. So it's just a lot of kind of word of mouth between people.
Uh, I guess I'm probably putting you on the spot if I do this, but you were mentioning local authors, and I wonder if there's any local authors who have books out right now that you might want to talk about or that you might want to give a little bump.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, Paul Hammond and B.A. Johnston wrote Gary the Seagull, an excellent kids book. I'm a huge fan of that one. Um, Anique McCaskill is a local poet, has a new book out from Gaspro Press. She's been a huge supporter of the bookstore. Her stuff is on our webpage in the sort of recommended section over there. Ann Simpson has a book as well from Gaspro Press. And if you haven't seen their books, they're beautiful books. So hugely recommend both of those. Um, yeah, trying to think of anybody else, but those are the ones that come to mind right off.
I like I said, I did put you on the spot. What is the most thankless part of working in a bookstore? Because I have a guess as to what it might be, but I'm very curious what you would say.
Probably the most difficult thing is, and everyone who works in a bookstore will know this, when someone calls out, but like, I heard about this book on CBC and it was so good, and I don't know who it is, I don't know who it's by, I don't know what it's called, but I need it. Can you get that for me? And I say, okay, well, can you like even like tell me what it's about, like loosely? Google is pretty powerful. I can often find out. And they're like, no, I remember nothing about it. So something like that, or I'm looking for this book. It was over here 6 months ago and it's blue. Where's that book that's blue? That's the kind of probably most difficult thing about. You want to help them so badly too, and every once in a while you'll get it, but it's tricky. What do you think? What is your opinion on it?
I thought you were going to tell me that you had a bad back from picking up so many books. Actually, I just
I mean, I do have a bad back, and that is true, but I
my
did
animal
a
brain
book
just
event.
goes there first, and yeah.
I did another book event for a friend of mine, and her launch was in a cute little art gallery. So I opened the door to go in there, and 3 flights of stairs. As soon as I opened the door, I thought, it's you're lucky you're my friend.
I've got another question here from Anonymous. This is a question for both of us, so I'll let you go first, Paul. But what is the last great book you read?
The last great book. The last great book I read was actually Zadie Smith's new book. What was I'm getting all my book names kind of. Yeah, it's Intimations. It's a book of 6 essays that she wrote during like the last couple of months during COVID, and it's kind of her take on just what daily life is and what it feels like to exist right now, and her kind of social situations and just personally her relationship. It's a very small book, but it's probably the greatest book right now. Good books make you feel less lonely. That book just really does that for you. It makes you feel so much more connected to other people, and you can read it in like an hour. I've read it 4 times at this point, and my partner's reading it right now too. So I think just for a book to be that good and that timely at the same time, it's not a common thing. So that would be my biggest recommendation right now. What's yours?
That's a really good one. Well, it honestly, I have found now being a published author that people love the one book kinds of questions, and it's so hard. It's honestly so hard. Also, I wish I read as like more than I do. So but I see a book behind you that I have read recently, which is A Mind Spread Out on the Ground by Alicia Elliott. And that is a book that I have read recently that I really was touched by. Alicia is really good at conveying emotionally. I felt like I could really hear her voice while reading this book and hearing her talk about a lot of really personal things, but then a lot of broader kinds of intergenerational struggles and struggles as an Indigenous woman, and like really taking care about, you know, describing things that are hard, describing things that might be traumatic, describing things that affect people in really personal and like deep ways. And it was a courageous book.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for Alicia to write about struggles within her own family, there's a chapter about lice in that book and about like struggles that people have when they don't have a lot of money, and how hard it is to just do something basic like get rid of a lice infestation. And I'm like, man, you're courageous for speaking about this, because there's a lot of shame associated with things like that. So I really like Mine Spread Out on the Ground, and I would pick that as one of so many books that I could name. We're still getting in questions here. We have another question from Anonymous. If you could have a physically distant book club with any three authors who are dead, what would they be? See, these are the ones. These are the ones that people love to. I'm telling you guys, this is not like, this is a really easy question to ask and a really hard question to answer. Okay, so we can try this. Physically distant book club, Paul. Any three authors, living or dead. Oh my God, it's so challenging. If you can't think of three, I forgive you.
I would go. My favorite book is Moby Dick, so I'd have to have Herman Melville in there. Love him. James Baldwin, absolutely. And someone who's alive, I would love to talk to George Saunders. I'm a huge George Saunders fan.
Okay. That question was for you, not me. So I'm gonna let you.
Oh, you're gonna skip it.
I'm telling you, these questions. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about Toni Morrison, who just passed away, and I would do it with Toni Morrison just so that we can bring her back and have her voice here again. I think she is one of the most important writers I certainly have ever encountered. Everybody should be reading Toni Morrison, if you never did while she was alive, to understand why this woman has such a powerful legacy um, in every way, like in fiction, in essays, in like her range. Toni really had the range. What can I say? And she's left us so much work, a huge body of work. So I will pick Toni Morrison. We have one more. How has Cormac McCarthy prepared you for the pandemic, and do you sell his books there? It's a question from Byron Fleck.
Yeah, I know Byron. He's a friend of mine, actually. Yeah, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, post-apocalyptic nightmare. It was actually pretty wild when things first started shutting down in the city. Like, nobody was out. And I would get some books together and I'd go on my bike, and as terrible as it was amazing to be just the one person out in the city, just weaving around these roads, no cars whatsoever, like complete ghost town. And I would drop a book off in a mailbox, and someone would like look out the window and kind of like, look longingly at the package in the mailbox. It was a very sort of like post-apocalyptic feel for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we'll have time for just one more. People have been wonderful with the questions today, so thank you all for the questions that you've been submitting to us here. So ask this one last question, which is, this is for both of us again. What is your favorite novel and why? And how many editions of it do you own?
Well, like I said,
you got to go first.
My favorite book is Moby Dick by a long shot. I've read it 3 times, and I own, I think, 7 different versions of it. So people know that about me too. So they'll always, like, if they see one, they'll give me a copy of it, or they'll like give me like a little whale thing. Like, my apartment looks like a crazy person lives there because it's just full of whales, and like I've got a collection of like scrimshawed sperm whale teeth and stuff like that. That was my, like, if I had to pick one book on a deserted island sort of thing, it would be that, and I would read it over and over and over again.
So again, these favorite questions, y'all, if you only understood, like, it's so hard. So I'm not going to tell you my favorite novel, but I will talk about a novel that I again read recently and really, really liked, which was The Underground Railroad by Coulson Whitehead. It was good, and it was really good for me because um, there were a lot of really, really interesting characters, including like a slave catcher character whose job it is to be tracking down people who are trying to escape. And I always think there's like a lot of tropes that you can fall into when you're describing these kinds of characters who are like portrayed as like the epitome of evil. And it's tricky to, I'm not going to say humanize them, but in a way, like to write characters that are complex, who are doing things that we associate either with like real good or with real evil. Like making complex characters is challenging, and Coulson Whitehead does like a really, really good job of that in the Underground Railroad. So that's a novel that I've read recently again, and that I would highly recommend. I feel like a pressure to just read a whole bunch of books so that whenever these questions come up, Paul, I can answer them better, because everybody always
His
wants to know. But
his newest one is amazing too, The Nickel Boys. I read that in one sitting and just hugely amazing book.
I'm looking at it actually on up here at Penguin Random House. We've got a copy of it sitting right here as well. And I've been hearing incredible things. Yeah. Shh, don't tell them. Don't tell them. Nobody needs to know what I do. That's about it for us here on Feature Friday. So first of all, I would like to say very much thanks to Paul MacKay for being here. For anybody who joined us a little bit late, Paul is from King's Co-op Bookstore, an independent, cooperatively run bookstore that is in Halifax, Nova Scotia. The link to the King's Co-op Bookstore is in the chat, so please do check them out online. Next Friday is the final spotlight event of the Canadian Independent Bookstore Day, and on August 29th, that'll be happening. So please be sure to follow Penguin Random House at Penguin Random CA on Twitter, and use the hashtag Indie Feature Friday, and keep an eye out for the next Final Feature Friday. Thank you, everybody. Paul, please stay well out there on the East Coast. It is lovely seeing you and lovely talking to you.
You too, man. It's been great to see you.
And take care, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.